you've got to be persistent and you've got to value yourself, because quite often other people won't value you. And sometimes you've got to take risks. I think risks is quite key, that you've got to say, I am capable of this. I am going to take the chance of going for that promotion. I am going to say to my boss, this is my worth. And so I think, don't ever limit yourself with potential. So I'm Jennifer. I am currently a learning and development manager in quite an operational role at a large financial services company called Mazars, which is global. I'm actually based in Birmingham in the West Midlands. I have been working at Mazars for just coming up to 3 years now, and started here as a learning designer and have quickly changed role into sort of a learning and development manager role, and have been sort of working on processes, governance, working with very complex learning systems and trying to get things in place and cope with volume of work. So ever since, we've got a great team now and in a position to sort of thrive going forward. So Mazars is it's international firm. We've actually got 5 main countries that we form our group, but we've got representation in over 95 countries worldwide. Our services range from audit to accountancy provision for small to medium enterprises, so sole traders through to your multinationals. We provide risk management and consultancy services and environmental and efficiency services, and we provide consultancies, financial planning. And I believe we've got a sustainability service line now, so we're supporting businesses with their sustainability profiles. And so, it really covers a wide aspect. We've got over 3,000 employees in the UK at the moment, not all of which are based in the UK. So we've got UK employees based in Singapore, Delhi, all regions of the UK as well. So quite widespread, and we mix with, have meetings with people from all around the world quite often. That's something I really enjoy. We have a large graduate intake program where we work with an apprenticeship provider, and we support school leavers through to graduates in their professional qualifications, so apprenticeship qualifications from level 4 to 7. We onboard about probably 400 a year minimum of those, and we have an early careers process that sort of really does reach out to a wide audience, and we have strong links with our network, as our So Mobile network, which looks at social mobility and supporting individuals, can be whether that's women in the financial services or leadership roles, or whether that's people from backgrounds that wouldn't necessarily enter a financial service professional career pathway. So we support and kind of engage with that as well. I grew up in an area of Birmingham that isn't the most affluent, but borders quite affluent areas, a lot of inner cities, or cities. One of 4 siblings, and my parents both only children who had grown up with quite different backgrounds in a different part of the country, in the south of England, and moved to Birmingham to become teachers after going through college or degree level education. And they kind of hit Birmingham, I think, realized, it became quite poor, because they were at that point, teaching profession wasn't as well paid as it might be nowadays. And raising children, they were quite young, raising a family with not very much money and job commitments was quite challenging, I think, from my childhood memories, from their experience. And they sort of moved away from wealth and privilege into this, sort of independent life where they were suddenly strapped for cash. They became teachers, as I said, so they kind of in that academic background. And the second oldest, so my older sister, was always very academic, did well at school, was very, all the teachers loved her and praised her. I was kind of like the rebellious one who didn't pay any attention at school, didn't engage with that talk and chalk approach that was present very much in my education, less so these days. So I went through my school time, my education, very much thinking that it wasn't for me. I didn't gain anything. And actually, although I was from an academic family of parents with teachers, the last thing they kind of wanted to do was be teaching me. So they didn't really follow whether or not I was doing anything. And apart from a brief period where I was on report for never doing homework, nobody actually ever challenged me for not doing any work. And so I breezed through school with nothing. I came away with one GCSE, which was the first year that GCSEs were implemented. And so again, probably arguments to say that wasn't necessarily all my fault, because the teachers weren't sure what they were doing with the new curriculum. However, I do take ownership, and I recognise that I didn't actually make any effort, and I came away with results that kind of reflected that. Disappointed father, it wasn't as I kind of made to feel like I wasn't very intelligent, like I was thick, and it wasn't a positive experience for me, school. From there, I had limited choices because I only had one GCSE. So I kind of ended up going to a sixth form college where I undertook a level 3 diploma in secretarial skills at that point. I guess coming from a female school, single sex education of females, I've been taught touch typing, which is a skill I will never regret having, but it's a shame it was only kind of picked up on in that kind of environment. I took to my college life like a duck to water. I didn't have to think or do anything to achieve really high results with the qualification, because it was all practical. And I'm very kinesthetic. And of course, at that point in my life, I didn't understand what that meant, but it meant I learned by doing and by experiencing. I just absolutely flew through it and was encouraged by the teachers to go into work. They would say to us that if we missed a week of shorthand or typing because of a half term, for example, we would immediately lose all of our skills. I can challenge that now because I've still got those skills. So I kind of came through with a really different, a really polar opposite experience of education through college. And that ethos of working really suited me. So I was going out to work in my half terms from the age of 16 onwards at sixth form. And that really was fantastic opportunity and experience. And so I was in the secretarial or basic administrative positions temporarily, never out of work since. Really key life skills that have been transferable to every aspect of my career. So I started working in a secretarial environment and found that I was attending meetings to take notes and thinking, I can do this. What do you know that I don't? Maybe a bit big-headed. But I would always challenge the fact that I didn't want to be just seen as this undermined individual. I wanted to contribute. I wanted to be the person sharing meetings and having the thoughts and sharing ideas. And that's one of the biggest drivers throughout my career. I found that the secretarial role, which actually doesn't exist in that format as much now, it's more of an executive assistant or a sort of an administrative officer kind of description now, but I found it undermined me. People didn't respect me for the work that I was doing. I wasn't getting respect for the volume of work or level of work that I was putting in. So I looked at what I could do about it and saw an opportunity internally to work with one of the directors that I supported in a project administrator role. Because that project was only managed by herself and with me as the resource, it was an opportunity to really grow very quickly. I had a learning curve that was extremely steep and developed lots of skills around administration, around coordination, project management, deliverables, reporting, managing stakeholder expectations. And that was just like a trigger. It was like putting me in a catapult and pressing in and firing it. And I was in that role for 6 months before I was then further promoted to a sort of an office manager role. And I worked in project roles, administrative centre management roles across universities and private sector, including limited liability partnerships, which is the kind of environment I'm in currently. So I've worked in those environments extensively, but was often held back by the fact that I didn't have a degree. So I was in roles because I'd kind of landed in them. But then if those roles were coming to an end, I wasn't competitive when applying for the vacancies that were available at the same level. So I didn't have a degree. So I kind of addressed that and went back into education, started doing a degree. Ended up not finishing it because I had a child, which was just bad timing at that time.
What was the degree in? Sorry.
It was in business administration, and it was at a local polytechnic. And as they were at that point, but it was really, it was challenging because I was doing it on top of a full-time job. And then when I got pregnant, it kind of sealed it for me. And so it coincided with them ending the qualification and me then not completing it, which is a real shame. That's still a regret. However, I've gone on to do higher level qualifications since. I got made redundant upon returning from maternity leave at the university. I then moved into sort of a staff development area and was supporting learning and development from an administrative perspective and a project and management perspective. Did various roles at some large universities in the Midlands there. And again, it just, I kind of was always reaching that peak of the level. I was at the top of it. I'd achieved everything that was achievable. And then the roles would kind of evaporate. We had a lot of challenges through different, sort of environmental and economic crisis. And so, I found myself being made redundant throughout my career for a number of times, I think in total about 9. Every single time I've been made redundant, I have not been out of work for long. If I've not been out of work, I've kind of taken my severance pay and had another job lined up within a month. So it's proved, again, back to those skills transferable. One of the key things there, again, is that ability to articulate what I've contributed. I do a lot of interviews of job roles and see people going, we did this and we do that. And I'm not interested in the we when I'm interviewing a potential candidate. I want to know what their contribution was. So I think if there's any feedback there that people could benefit from hearing, that would be a piece of advice there. Yes. So I have basically then ended up changing my career completely. I being in that learning environment and having a teaching family, my siblings are teachers. I kind of have it in my blood, I guess. And I ended up looking into how I could become a successful trainer or lecturer in a college or university or college at that time. And coincided that with the decision by the government that FE didn't need to be funded, so further education didn't need government funding. So that was a bit of a bad timing, but it just added to the challenge and I think my keenness to still succeed. And I looked into what qualifications I needed by referring to role profiles, what skill sets did they need, how did I get those, and then that's where I took, sort of leapt into the I'm not going to be held back by my education this time. So I retrained, became a trainer, an assessor, worked with schools on apprenticeship programs, taught for 2 years in a prison environment, quite high CAT prisons in the inner city. So that was a real learning curve. And then left that to become sort of a curriculum writer. So writing the learning content, building learning, and then moved into the learning design role that I started at Mazars. Mm-hmm. And I think all of my experience combined and my passion for learning and getting the experience to be right and the driver for the learning to be right has kind of really helped me to be in a position that I'm in here and help them to see that I wasn't just a learning designer. I could be this learning development manager and actually trying to have a broader impact on the firms. There's 2 key takeaways for me. One is that money isn't everything and you can be driven by financial reward very easily. And I have fallen prey to that because I owned a house at a very young age and it was very challenging. That isn't always going to bring you the happiness at all. You've got to be happy at work because you spend a lot of your time there. So if the job isn't right for you, the job isn't right for you. The other piece of advice I would say is that you've got to be persistent and you've got to value yourself because quite often other people won't value you. And sometimes you've got to take risks. I think risks is quite key, that you've got to say, I am capable of this. I am going to take the chance of going for that promotion. I am going to say to my boss, this is my worth. Because I think that can be a difference between a male and a female as well. A male can be more confident in challenging their boss for a promotion or pay rise than somebody from the female background. Various potential reasons for that. But I do think that I have seen that happen, and I think that can hold women back in the workforce. My next aim is to become a senior leader. I want to become a director, and so I'm developing now my leadership skills from that doer to that guider, in case that coach. And so I think, don't ever limit yourself with potential.